We all go a little mad sometimes.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
They're here.
Hi. There is an idea of a Lee Whelan, some kind of abstraction, but there is no real me, only an entity, something illusory. And although I cannot hide my cold gaze, and you can shake my hand and feel flesh gripping yours, and maybe you can even sense our lifestyles are probably comparable, I am simply not there.
The fuck? Man, where are the jokes? Where are the jokes? I just want my fucking reservation at Dorcia's. That's all I want right here and now. That's all I want is just a table for one, please. Table for one at Dorcia's. And the guy at the other end of the phone just like pisses himself
Just laughs at
laughing.
him. And you're listening to
They're Here.
Podcast
A discussion
and dissection
of all things far
here and the macabre.
the macabre.
The macabre. Isn't that a Jewish thing? No, it's the macabre.
It's a Jewish thing. Where are the jokes?
They're all over this movie, and if you don't get
Damn.
it, you're not smart enough.
God damn. So, my choice this beautiful psychopathic psycho month.
Which I was
Serial killer.
I was not disappointed that y'all didn't pick my choice. Because we had to pick something else as well.
That's true.
I was very happy to do this movie.
It's kind of a thing. Can I just say, are we calling it Psycho Month or are we calling it Serial Killer Month?
Kind of true crime
True crime?
month.
Are we keeping it like age appropriate?
Non-supernatural killers. Just killer month. You know?
Okay,
Or,
killer
yeah,
month.
Psycho month.
Psycho
I
month,
think Psycho
yeah.
month suits.
Yeah. So anyway, American Psycho.
Hell yeah.
2000.
2000.
Right on the dot. 2000.
Yeah. It
19
feels very 90s, but I feel like 2000 and 2001 are kind of just like the last hurrah for the 90s.
It's very Apollonius 6 and 7, but not 8 or 9.
Yeah.
Or maybe more Whitney Houston.
You nasty. Oh no, that's Janet.
So you guys chose, and thanks. You chose my movie American Psycho.
And I wasn't surprised. Peeping Tom is a little bit more obscure. This is kind of why people loved. I don't know anybody I know that has seen this movie that doesn't like it.
I would agree. I'm going to be very honest with you. The first time I watched this film, and this is like back when I was in the womb, when I first watched this film, I did not understand it at all. Mm-hmm. And up until a certain point in the film, obviously, there's still parts where they're sort of very left open to interpretation, in a certain sense. But I will say that as like every time I have watched this film, and it's usually yours is every month, I watch this film maybe every few years, and I do gradually begin to understand it more and gain a deeper understanding of it.
I was just gonna say, I think the more I watch it, the more I lean towards one interpretation of it. Like when I first watched it, I was kind of like, what the fuck? What the fuck is this? But then also I'm just going to kind of spoil my thoughts for, like, the ending. I think it was all in his head. I think the psycho part of him is that he made it all up. Because the more and more he kills, the more and more ridiculous the kills get. Mm-hmm. Like, at the end, it goes from, like, something really subtle and then kind of completely off screen, like in a dark alley, and, like, suggested to, and then the end where he's just having a full-on shootout and blowing up police cars.
Yeah.
And stuff. And a lot of the time, he'll just... You actually find it's actually very, very funny. I think this is like kind of as close to a comedy as we've gotten so far. Maybe aside from what the fuck was that one movie, The Cottage?
The Cottage,
yeah.
where it was a dark comedy.
Yeah, that like straight. Actually, okay, this is like.
Okay, so you're gonna have to explain this one to me. So you told me over the phone that you were cackling at this movie at certain points.
Maybe not necessarily like a comedy, but more.
Shall we say
like,
unintentionally? Maybe.
No, I don't think so. It's fully intentional. I think
Really?
I think it's more of a satire because it's not glorifying any of these people or this lifestyle. It's absolutely taking the piss out of
it's
it.
condemning them.
And like like Patrick Bateman, even though he's supposed to be this like cool, like in his mind, he like comes off as this cool guy. Patrick Bateman is like a fucking loser. Like nobody remembers his name. He's completely forgettable to everybody. You know, anytime anybody refers to him, most of the time they refer to him as the wrong name. Mm-hmm. You know,
I think he's referred to as 3 different people. He's referred to as Lewis's character.
Lewis
He's referred to Davis' character. Davies or Davis's? Davis. And then there's one other guy. But he's never referred to as Bateman apart from the detective, his secretary, or his fiance. Yeah. Oh, I know
Cecilia.
Cecilia, yeah. So like it does come across like that's kind of like the opening thing like I wanted to really talk about. But before we get into it,
he's not there. Like he doesn't seem to make an impression on people unless he has like
he's a shadow
an actual
of a
personal relationship with them.
So this is obviously American Psycho, based upon the novel of the same name by Bret Easton Ellis.
Sorry,
and it was directed by Mary Herron. Oh, actually, I think this is probably the first or the second film on our list of 3-year plus, podcasts that we've had a female director.
Yeah, and I see. This is the thing with this movie; it was very controversial because of how it like treats women or whatever. But also, I don't think it's made to like glorify Patrick Bateman whatsoever.
No.
But funnily enough, Christian Bale was not the first pick. It was actually Leonardo DiCaprio and Gloria Steinem, very famous feminist, famous sunglass wearer, urged him not to do it because he was such a heartthrob to so many young girls, and that if they saw this, it would completely ruin his reputation.
Yeah.
But with Christian Bale, like he plays this, like I think he was directed to play this as kind of a dark comedy because the way he acts is hilarious in this movie. I don't even think unintentionally.
It's
like
erratic. It's frightening at times.
Even the scene it's
confusing.
It is, and like also with Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe was instructed to play this, 2 or 3 different ways where some shots are play it as if you absolutely know Patrick did all these things, play it as if you don't know at all, and play it as you're just kind of being inquisitive. So like we never get the actual straight up vibe from Willem Dafoe. But with Christian Bale, which is what happens when you leave church early.
What happens when you leave?
You Christian Bale.
Oh my god!
I think like there are times in this movie where he's genuinely frightening because he plays unhinged so well.
Yes.
But then there's other times where like the laundromat scene where that scene is hilarious.
Yes.
Even though he's being a maniac, it's hilarious. Even like the dialogue he has with his friend that he meets in there or whatever is so funny. He's like, "Can I meet you next Saturday?" And she's like, "Yeah, I can do next Saturday." And he's like, "Sorry, I can't. I have a matinee at Les Mis." You know? It's just hilarious. He's such a weasel, but like he is. He's just such a loser. Like it, and this movie is like entirely in his head. I think.
I do think. I mean, it is partially influenced very well by obviously the screenplay was adapted from the book, but it was adapted by 2 women, obviously Mary Herron and Guinevere Turner. So like, I do think there is an obvious.
She's actually in this movie.
She is actually. When they wrote this, they were sort of feeling more so towards, let's say, how they felt about society and how society does this sort of cover up, shall we say, of like this sort of dirty parts of itself. And I think that's very obvious, like in the whole opening scene. I mean, like just with the titles itself, obviously it's meant to resemble blood, but it suddenly turns into like this gourmet, beautiful like setup of plates and things like that, and they're all handed to these pretentious high society yuppies, and how fake they are, and in their politeness and to each other, but behind, like, it sort of gives this idea that like behind locked doors and closed shutters that they are the most depraved,
people are rotten,
disgusting, rotten people alive. And
speaking of that last episode, straight people can be rotten too.
What?
People are just rotten.
So yeah, it does like give this kind of very clear cut idea that if you, not necessarily that if you come from money you're a dick, but like that constant times, and especially obviously like you had the 80s where it was like one big coke fueled party, that it became like, I think it was, like, other films we just describe them as, like, it feels dirty.
And it's New York.
You know? Yeah, it's New York, exactly. Like, it just
like, this
feels
is peak
dirty.
capitalistic.
You know?
That's why I say this movie is completely a satire, because it absolutely just ridicules, like, quote-unquote, yuppie scum. Also, interesting fact about Patrick Bateman, when Christian Bale was researching for the role, he actually based him on Tom Cruise.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I can see that, though, yeah.
Which I always say, Tom Cruise is one man I would not want to be in a room alone with, just because he kind of creeps me out. Fucking Scientologists. But,
God, weird.
He said that when he saw interviews with Tom Cruise and met him, he was very, very intensely happy in the face, and he acted very intensely friendly, but behind the eyes there was nothing. I'm like, that's so fucked up. Even in the book, actually, Tom Cruise lives in his building at the time or whatever, and you can kind of see it, like, in the mannerisms and stuff like that. He kind of does give off a Tom Cruise kind of vibe.
Yeah, there is a thing with sociopaths and things like that, and like they lack empathy, they lack the will to care about not certain things but everything.
Yeah.
At least on a deeper level where love and kindness and things are involved in it. These traits in a sociopath and someone who suffers from schizophrenia, or at least some levels of schizophrenia, are undeveloped, and they're practically non-existent. So Bateman is, in a way, the way the director and obviously the writer were trying to create the character is he is a physical manifestation or a reflection of what he views the high society, quote unquote high society, shall we say.
Well, it's the suits, it's the haircut, it's the funniest thing I think
the
in
dick
this movie.
Swinging of the cards.
It's the
shall
cards,
we say.
but they're all identical.
Yeah.
Give or take, like, one drop of blue in a vat of white on the card or whatever. Like, that scene I always look at as, like, it's one of my favorite scenes just because it's so hilarious. It's like, that's a lot of white colouring. Oh my god.
Oh, he practically
it's even got a
orgasms on it.
watermark. Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
See, that's bone.
That's bone,
you know?
yeah. I will say that it's good to know that even though Bateman is a beta male sexist, a rapist, a serial killer, a cannibal, that at least he's not anti-Semitic. He doesn't add anti-Semitism to that
cool
list.
it with the anti-Semitism.
Like, did you notice that? I thought it was like, what?
But also, it's entirely performative, because later on, I forget what the exact statement is, but later on when he's on the phone to his lawyer, he makes, like, an offhand remark about, like, a racist remark. So it's completely to appear like he's, like, S-tier man. Yes. You know, even when, like, they're talking with Cecilia's cousin when they go out to dinner, and they have that menu that's just metal. I love it so much. Yeah. And there's just, like, Cecilia's goth cousin or whatever. And
they're just sitting there, like...
They're like, so, Gash, do you think that Soho has become too commercialized? And she's like, hey, that affects us. And then they're like, let's talk about Sri Lanka.
Oh my god,
you know, and they just bring it up, and he goes into this whole monologue about, like, how it all, like, affects everybody and stuff. But it's so performative. You know, again, like, behind closed doors, he literally, or in theory, eats women. You know?
That's true. I mean, like, just to kind of, like, run that, those kind of moments home where you have people just, like, everyday things, like just going to a restaurant and ordering food and things like that. Like, the very need to bribe waiters and cheat and do coke in normal societal things.
Hey, I'm trying to do coke in here.
Like a restaurant just goes to show how spineless and slimy these guys are. Not just towards each other, there's a certain amount of, like, toxic masculinity, respect and reverement, but, like, towards anyone else outside of their, like, societal parameters, kind of, is, like, dirt cheap, and you can be bought off with a hand job or a line of coke, or you know what I mean. And it just speaks to, like, especially, like, you know, the high society of it all in the 80s.
So much of this movie is people on the phone trying to get reservations.
Oh my god, like, there's one character where he literally only talks about reservations and how hungry he is. That's all he talks about.
It's
there's one
Justin
of them.
Theroux.
Yeah.
hint, we'll talk about him later.
So let's talk about this monologue, this opening monologue that Christian Bale has.
I love it so much.
This is like pure heaven. The way this was shot is just, it's beautiful.
Also fully relatable. I
was
I
thinking
have
of
a
you when I
skincare
watched
routine
this.
like comparable to this though. Like it is ridiculous, and he even does say it's like, don't put alcohol on your face. Like I told you that when I was skinny, you should just don't put alcohol on your face because it dries your skin out.
It was, the cinematography was by, and I'm probably going to butcher this name,
Mark Johnson.
Andre Sekula. And you know, I've got to give it to him. Like these,
the Sekula dynasty.
Well, I mean, like he has done like some things. Like he's done Reservoir Dogs. He did Pulp Fiction. You know, I'm just reading these off as I go along here. Like I know what I'm talking about.
No, you can kind of tell
like,
though.
Yeah, it is beautiful, and this whole scene. I mean, it is the iconic scene. I mean, what you call it? Margot Robbie did this for her Vogue thing.
Yeah, it was so good.
It was hilarious, and then she obviously does the dance at the end with the kind of switsy swoo elbow thing. But like, it was just really good, and again, like just the first literally thing, like the thing we firstly see about Bateman is that he walks over to the fridge and immediately a mask is on his face.
That's the iconic image for me from this. I remember before, again, this is a movie I was not allowed to watch as a kid. I was not allowed to rent, but it was one that always stuck out to me in Extravision, because it's just a white cover with Patrick on the front topless with that ice mask on the front. Yeah. And like, again, I didn't know that was a fucking ice mask. I thought it was like they had like negative imaged a part of his face or whatever to make it look like that. But this was a movie I was always so curious about, and like again, was not allowed to watch, and like probably also wouldn't have done a lot for me as a kid, because a lot of it is like, if I saw this as a kid I would have found it quote unquote boring, you know, because there's not a lot of stuff kind of until the end.
It's sort of deeper in the meaning aspect than
it
just,
is. I feel like you have to be a little bit older to kind of appreciate the comedy in this.
The comedy in this.
But it is though, that's the thing. I don't even think the comedy is unintentional. Like like again, when he kills Paul Allen in this movie, that scene is hilarious. Like he's dancing around to Huey Lewis in the news.
Square.
But exactly that, and he's literally doing this little dance and all that kind of stuff, and like throws the most gorgeous axe I've ever seen. You know,
super shiny,
chrome,
it's
stunning.
It's a mirror. The axe is a mirror,
and I loved like it's something about the look. Again, I also think it's very. This movie is a lot about like juxtaposition. When he puts the little raincoat on or whatever, and he's like, "Is that a raincoat?" And he's like, "Yes, Paul,
yes,
it is." But then when he takes it off, he's got this perfectly like crisp, clean Armani suit or Valentino Couture suit, but then his face is just covered in blood. Yeah, you know,
and the hair is slightly ajar on one side.
I actually think it looks better, kind of tousled, because it flares out at the sides and stuff. Yeah. Everybody in this movie has an 80s mullet, but it's like a yuppie 80s mullet where it's all brushed to the back. It's nasty. Like everybody in this movie looks kind of the same, and that's kind of the point. Yeah, is that like Patrick is all about conformity and quote unquote fitting in.
But that's exactly what he talks about when he's listening to Hip to Be Square. He actually says it about convergence,
not just about the importance of trends and the importance of conformity, you know.
But yeah, when it comes to like the idea of him putting on a mask for society, I mean, like that was very literal at the very beginning of
when
his
he peels
monologue.
it off.
When he peels it off, it's just the idea, like the entity, the feel. You said it there earlier as your opening line, the feel of flesh. But he isn't there. Like he is. The way Patrick Bateman, at least from his monologues, the way he views himself is he is a husk of a man, and beneath the surface is this entity, this monster that is just. I don't know how to say it. Like it's a thing that is bloodlust. And
well, even when Cecilia says to him when he breaks up with her, she's like, "You're inhuman," and he's like, "I'm in touch with humanity." You know, like he's aware of it, and that's the thing. Is like I think this is, see, it's weird when you talk about psychopaths and stuff like that nowadays, because people do recognize it now. Again, even me saying that makes it sound like we recognize it as a thing, but it's like I do have a lot of empathy for people who do suffer from psychopathy, because it's like it's not their fault. It's a mental illness. Obviously, people don't act like this generally, you know, but like it's everything he does is like a reflection on who he is around, and he acts this way because he thinks it's the way that people expect him to act, and because like he thinks it'll get him ahead, and it does. You know, like it totally works. But the first time we kind of see a slip from him, or the first time we see him kind of express himself in like outside of this, is in the bar where they go, and we get that gorgeous drag queen at the door, this huge like,
this woman of the night.
Woman. It's stunning. Goes in, and then there's all these drag performers as Charlie's Angels on the thing.
It's a gay bar. He went to a gay. They
it
went
is.
to a gay bar.
We get a lot of that, but also it's New York in the late '80s, so this is like when
There's
club
gays
kids
everywhere.
But this is when club kids would have started to be
thing.
on the thing, and the like the debutantes and the socialites and all this kind of stuff. It's all a big mix, you know. But when he goes in, she's like, that'll be $25, or she's like, these are no good, this is a cash only bar or whatever, and he gives her the money or whatever, and he's like, you're a fucking ugly bitch, and I want to cut you open and play around in your blood. And then she comes back and like doesn't hear it at all. You know, there's a lot of that in this movie where he'll say something really outlandish and really like maniacal, and then somebody will be like, what did you say? You know, like they don't hear it, but then it's like, did he even say that? Or is this him like imagining what he wants to say?
The scene,
which is how I read it.
The scene with that model, at the end,
you think I'm stupid, don't you?
Yeah, he says like, she asks what he's into.
Murder and executions.
He goes murder executions, and she replies with
most
acquisitions.
guys I know who are into mergers and acquisitions really don't like it.
And he was just like,
I love her hair. Her hair is a fringe that goes straight up like this and out to the side.
Oh yeah,
it's so good. Even Cecilia, her hair always is like this little, played by Reese Witherspoon, by the way. Like I love her in this movie. She's
very early on,
hilarious. But her hair is always like slicked back to this little like chignon with like a little bow, with this gelled bang that's just straight up and straight down. Like all the women in this look like cartoon characters. Like they all look like Mugler women.
Yes,
you know, like they look like caricatures of women.
I think so. Like, I mean, from what I've read up with the way Bateman acts is particular because of three things. So he has paranoia, he suffers from delusions, clearly, and he suffers from schizophrenia. So the man states he cannot take time off work when he's talking to Reese Witherspoon's character.
She's like, we should get married, and he's like, I can't take the time off work.
He literally goes, he can't take time off work because of appearance sake, even though her father runs the company.
And anyway, I don't just quit that job because I want to fit in.
Yeah,
you know,
he wants to fit in so badly that he's willing to spew the most like social justice warrior stuff he can, to stuff that he can think like off the top of his head, like you mentioned Sri Lanka and all of that. He's to total strangers and quote unquote friends,
and his friends eat it up though. Even Lewis, the fag, he kind of was like, Patrick, that was so thought-provoking. I actually, that scene of them in the bathroom is so funny though, because he's so just, oh, you fucking touched me, bro. You know, he washes his gloves and everything in this thing.
But like, he probably, like, at the worst is like, he probably doesn't even care that he most likely doesn't even care as to what he's saying about the truth, in order just to do that very thing, which is to fit in, because like that subject came up and he wants to like include himself in that in order to feel.
Well, he's trying to be the alpha.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is what all these men are trying to do. That's why you have the dick swinging contest of the cards, or the suit, or the apartment. Even like his biggest source of anxiety in this movie is when he goes to Paul Allen's apartment and realizes it's bigger and has a better view and it's more expensive.
Yes.
You know? But see, that's what I'm saying. That's why I find this movie hilarious. You know, it's not like fucking Police Academy funny, but it like, I do laugh out loud when I watch this movie, and I find generally when I watch this with people, this is also one of my favorite movies to show people for the first time when they haven't seen it, because it's hilarious. You know, and people do generally have the reaction of just like, it's hilarious in kind of like a bizarre, like, it's like almost like avant-garde in a way, where it's like, it's wacky as fuck, but it's all completely played straight. You know, it's like, you do look at all these people and it's like, all these people are fucking losers, you know, but they really, really are trying to, again, like, are just trying to keep up appearances, you know. But I would almost love to see this movie from another character's perspective, because it's like I'm pretty sure they would also have a lot of the same thoughts as Patrick Bateman. We just wouldn't see them acted out.
We just see Bateman's side of it. Well, obviously it's written from his point of view, but we see Bateman's side of it because he suffers from these mental illnesses.
Yeah. Also a reference to Norman Bates with Bateman.
Oh yeah, like Ed Gein is mentioned, Ted Bundy is mentioned.
Oh, the Ed Gein quote is
I
think two things when I see a pretty girl walking down the street. The first is I would love to take her out and take her to dinner and have a nice meal. And then they're like, what is the second thing? And he's like, how good her head would look on a stick. That's also one of the only moments in this movie where I think he really does slip, because his friends do kind of look at him like,
the fuck,
bro?
Yeah. Well, speaking of like moments that slip, let's talk about that bedsheet scene in the cleaners.
That's so funny, bro.
The scene prior to that is him walking home on his own, and he meets a woman at a stoplight.
Yeah.
So, and it cuts off right there, so it's implied that the bloodstains on the sheets are hers.
She's his first kill that we know of.
She's his first kill that we know of. And the one thing I fucking am terrified of is how the fact that Bateman could get away with that verbal abuse such as that, such as the way he speaks is obviously, like, it just speaks to the times in the 80s of that era, like how, you know, the upper white class man could get away with so much.
I was going to say, you actually find a lot of the servers, or a lot of the people who Patrick would look at as quote unquote beneath him, are not white, and a lot of people he talks to, like pieces of shit, are either women or not white. Like that, the woman in the bar, this woman in the laundrette and stuff, or as you Americans would call it, a laundromat. You find that, like,
what does he say to her? He says, I'm gonna gut you, or like,
it's like, if you don't get these sheets finished, I'm gonna fucking kill you, or whatever, like that.
Yeah, because like, he's worried because he has an appointment like
all the way uptown,
like,
and his friend runs in. She's like, wow, Patrick, what are those? Like, she kind of sees. So that's
cranberry juice,
pineapple, obviously. But like, that's another moment where it's hard to get an interpretation of this, because she sees those bloodstains.
Yes,
you know, so it's like it can't entirely be in his head, but also, again, he goes back to where all those bodies were stored, and nothing is there.
Yeah,
you know, or did he make this interaction with her up in his head?
That's true. You know?
I
will say that, like, the one moment, and I've seen this so many times on, like, TikToks on Instagram, of that shot where he is leaving the laundromat, and he's like, okay, and as he closes the door, his persona drops completely as he's leaving. It's sort of like, it's so maniacal to think that just below the surface of that smile is this, like, this wolf. Do you know what I mean? Like, that is ready to, I mean, like, he quite literally eats people, but, like, is ready to snap.
Like, that's his natural instinct. It's like, it's not
ready
even
to break your neck.
Yeah,
at a
it is kind
notice,
of,
you know?
almost a Michael Myers thing, where it's just like his natural impulse is to kill.
Yeah.
And we even get it at the end where he's talking to his lawyer, that he's like, I can't stop.
Yeah.
Like, I can't help it. You know? Like, it's not as if he's just, like, killing for a sport or for the fun of it or whatever. It's like, this is just his, like, the same way we have natural impulses to eat or to drink
fuck.
water, or, you know, exactly. Like, but even when he's having sex in this movie, it's not about the people he's having sex with. It's about the fact that he's having sex.
Yeah.
You know, or the fact that he's having sex with, like, beautiful women. And he's very, like, he obviously has a type, because he asks for blonde. I can't stress that enough, blonde. And then she shows up and he's like, you're really dirty blonde, aren't you? Yeah. Like, it'll do.
I will say that that's definitely a part of his personality. This sort of, he's not having sex or making love. He's just fucking.
It's an ego thing.
Like,
he's looking at himself in the mirror.
Yeah, he's literally, like, flexing in the mirror, and he's like, look at my fucking biceps.
I did find myself last night, though, doing that. Like, when it came up or whatever, like that, it's just like this or whatever like that. It's like, again, like, I've seen this movie a million times, but it's so fun. That actually used to be my cover photo on Facebook, is him, like, in the mirror, like, looking at himself. But it's so
egocentric. It's so narcissistic.
Don't just look at it, eat it. You know, he's talking about her ass.
he's on this monologue trip about, I can't remember. Oh, Phil Collins.
Phil Collins, yeah.
And like he's talking about the most beautiful like swells.
We get a full shot of him pulling it out and a zoom in on the fucking on the album. Oh, this is it's the Susu Studios scene.
Oh yeah. So the other thing that I mean, like, while we're on that note, we have to talk about the fact that he's so empty inside, and he needs to be like, because we all have, as human beings, we all have these distractions that we like to do. So for example, as an artist, it might be to paint or sculpt or draw or whatever.
Walking, listening to music. Well, he also listens to music, but he only listens to music that is popular.
Yeah,
you know,
he listens to like, while he does 1,000, because he's able to do 1,000 crunches, he listens to porn, hardcore porn, mind
it's
you.
It's actually called Inside Jessica's Ass. Or Inside Susan's Ass or something like that is the name of the thing, and it's just the girls being like,
Chainsaw
yeah,
Massacre.
cowboy, yeah,
like, again, obviously another Ed Gein reference and things like that.
Relatable content though.
Yeah. He probably would listen to this, Alan, to be fair. But like, it again, it just speaks to like the violence that goes on inside his brain. He's subconscious being like, well, if I can't fuck or if I can't kill, this is the next best thing.
Well, he's getting inspiration too, because we see that after the Texas Chainsaw workout is when he uses the chainsaw.
Yes, that's true.
Also,
where did he have that in his apartment? But
it's not even his apartment; it's Paul's apartment.
Oh, it's Paul's apartment. Yeah, that's true.
It's even, he gets
Paul
so
Allen.
offended
Paul
when
Allen's
she's like,
apartment.
you know, Paul, this is much nicer than your other apartment, and he's like, fuck you.
Fuck you, yeah.
He's like, he's pissed or whatever.
Yeah.
But also, it's weird, kind of watching it again. It's like, that's like a fully abandoned apartment building. Like, nobody has moved in there yet. That's why when she's running in the hall, and she does the thing you always root for the girl to do in the movie, which is make a fucking scene and bang on doors and scream. It's kind of the Laurie thing. But then it's scary because nobody comes out. But we don't realize yet that it's a new apartment building and nobody is there yet, really. You know? So even when we see Paul Allen's apartment later, it's vacant. Paul Allen wasn't there because Paul Allen never went missing. Paul Allen was just in London. Yeah. You know, so it is very, like, this is obviously intentionally done so that you can't get a read on, like, there is no clear cut ending of what did and didn't happen. Yeah. And it's never explained, which I do like because, again, it leaves it open for big conversation.
Yeah. Well, what really did fucking happen was this whole calling card scene. It's just, I, like, quite literally just looked at this as it's one giant Friedrich Nietzsche Freudian, you know, circle jerk dick swinging contest.
And they're all the same.
And they're all the exact same, apart from someone has some slight raised lettering. Yeah. Someone has gold. One person has black.
Lewis has gold, font. And that's why he freaks out, because Lewis's card is actually nicer than everybody else's because it's different and stands out. But I love that though, where it's shot like the most intense movie scene ever. Yeah. And it's so hilarious. And it's it's a superimposing of everyone's card with their faces. Is that a gram?
Like,
I use that line all the time.
And like, it's like everyone just looks, or sorry, like, they don't look disgusting, but they feel disgusting because, like, everyone is like got a slight haze of sweat on them. Like, everyone's like breathing through the mouth. Like, Bateman is practically orgasming when Paul Allen's card comes out.
Patrick, you're sweating.
It's really weird.
Let me guess. Valentino Couture. Yes, and then he goes to touch and he's like, your compliment was sufficient. But this is where I'm going to announce Human Chair of the Week. We get Louis Theroux, or we get Justin Theroux, rather.
Louis Theroux?
Justin
Theroux.
Yeah, it's Justin Theroux, Louis' cousin. Which is actually true.
But, like, which one is that?
Timothy. The Vegeta V. Like, he's the one that Patrick finds to be the only actually interesting person he knows. He's the friend with the black hair.
Ah,
and he's got like these.
Yeah.
He's got these like ice blue eyes, but
slicked back black hair.
Fucking hot though.
Okay, right. Well,
Justin Theroux will do a line of coke out of your ass, baby.
Well, I mean, there you go.
Seriously,
that is Human Chair of the Week right there.
So fucking hot in this movie.
Damn.
I mean, they all are. Patrick is like the beta of this group, you know? Like, he's, in my mind, the least attractive, the least... Like, he's the most He's a loser.
He is in the society
and
that
he's
in.
I think.
Yeah, so that's where I was gonna go next, because like Bateman is so frustrated like after this thing where he's like, holy shit, Paul Allen's card is better than mine. Like he's so frustrated that later he obviously murders the defenseless homeless man.
And Paul Allen is such a prick in this movie, though.
He really is.
Played by not even baby Jared Leto. Like, I think we forget that Jared Leto. Jared Leto
like
is
60.
Jared Leto is actually, he's 51. You know,
he might as
so
well
he
be
would have
100.
been. Well, no, but seriously though, it's like Jared Leto sometimes pops up and stuff.
I'm a million.
You were there at the birth, but Jared Leto sometimes pops up and stuff where I'm like, holy fuck, I forget he was.
You're around for a while, aren't you?
Like he's in Urban Legend 2 years before this.
What?
He's in Urban Legend.
Do explain.
So in Urban Legend, he's the reporter dude who everybody thinks is the suspect because they think he's making the news. He's like he's like the secondary main character in Urban Legend. In the first one, yeah.
Oh wow!
But he looks like a baby in it though. But this is like again 2 years after this. But like, just the way he's acting, like he is like the arch nemesis to Patrick Bateman in this movie because, like even when they go out for dinner or whatever, he's like, why the fuck? Like this restaurant is empty. Like why the fuck would you bring me here?
Yeah.
He's like, you got a great tan. Like, where do you tan? And he's like, in a salon. He's like, I have a tanning bed at home. You should look into it. And he's the one that kicks off the whole card scene. But also, he's the one that calls Patrick Halberstram. Like, he keeps.
Oh, that's another one, Halberstram.
Yeah, it's like, is it on purpose or does he know who Patrick Bateman is?
Yeah.
But it's weird because there are times in this where people refer to Patrick Bateman while talking to Patrick, and they're like, yeah, that loser Bateman. And it's like, do they just not know him? Or is he even Patrick Bateman?
Yeah, that's another thing that I was confused about at the end. But I'll get to it. Because I have a theory, but I don't want to reveal it until, like, we get to those, like, really pinnacle scenes. So but yeah, like after these sort of, like, how do I explain it? After, like, the obviously being frustrated by Paul Allen, like, his other, is that he murders a defenseless man on the street. Like,
this is a sad scene.
It is because
he kills a dog too.
He does. He kills a dog. Fuck him for killing that dog. But like, Patrick like goes out. He goes out his way. He knows what he's going to do, and you know this is at least the second murder that we are aware of.
It's the first one we see.
The first one that we see, but it's the second one that we're aware of. He feels impugned by the homeless man. He feels insulted.
I don't have anything in common with you. You reek of shit.
Filthied by him and all of this type of thing.
That's because he grabs him and he's like, "You're a kind man.
And so he murders him. He quite literally erases Al's life in a second. He kills the fucking dog. He's the only identifying characteristics, which he does explain, is greed and disgust. And his mask slips. He begins to crack, and like his mind begins to splinter. At least in my opinion, from that moment onwards. This
is also the first time in this scene where I start to see Patrick Bateman as kind of a Jack the Ripper. Because the way he's shot, we get to see him a lot in silhouette walking down alleyways and stuff. And it just really calls Jack the Ripper imagery into my head. Because he's always got a trench coat on. Or some kind of an overcoat that like flows that way. And because he's picking up sex workers and stuff like this, kind of specifically, he's not just picking up random women most of the time. It really does give me a big Jack the Ripper vibe because we get to see him a lot just shot in that way.
Yes.
You know? But yeah, this is like kind of particularly hard to watch because it feels the most like
it's
cruel.
Vulnerable. It's cruel.
It's like cause
I mean, like all murder is cruel, but like,
but it's not played for laughs or played for comedy
vulnerable.
The same way the other movies are.
Yeah.
Or the other kills are. It just seems like it's weird. It also seems like because this homeless man, it's a homeless black man, and for some reason he seems to have the most like disgust towards him versus it being a bloodlust kind of thing because he really is just kind of like ew.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You smell of shit.
Yeah.
You know? Like, even though it's horrible, it's still like, oh God. You know, like
he is.
It's zany almost, you know?
Yeah.
Patrick Bateman is a wacky guy.
I gotta say, though, like, the other thing that, like, kind of, like, puts Bateman into a really weird headspace is obviously Paul Allen himself. But I gotta say, the way Paul Allen disregards him, not out of spite, but because Bateman cannot live, like, being in the shadow of a more regarded person. Like, after his murder, it's not the disposal of the body that panics Bateman. It's the fact that the victim had an apartment that is more expensive and that it overlooks the park.
Yeah.
You know, New York Park. Like, that is just...
It's one of the only times we actually get to see Bateman be like, oh god.
Yeah, like, that's
like,
there's a real human reaction.
Yeah.
Even though it's warped and distorted, it's a real human reaction
jealousy.
that he has. Yeah.
You know, it's like, fuck, I really am as good as Paul Allen.
Can we just say, try getting a reservation at
Dorsey's
now, you fucking
bastard!
Yeah.
But that's what it is. It's like, Patrick is, like, again, Dorsia is, like, Mecca to all these people, where it's like, that's the nicest of the nice restaurants.
And Bateman cannot get a reservation there.
And the two times where he does, he either gets laughed at or completely just makes it up. And Jeannie even calls it out. Who is one of my favourite characters in this movie, played by Chloe Sevigny. Where she's kind of like, he's like, hi, can I have a reservation at 9? And they're like, no, we don't have anything. He's like, great, I'll be there, whatever. And she's like, you didn't give a name. You know? He's like, they know me there. You know? Now, the scene between them later is weird.
Yeah.
Because he like weirdly respects her in a weird way, where he's like, don't wear that outfit again. And she's like, you don't like it? And he's like, you know you're prettier than that. Yeah. You know, it's not like, fuck you, I hate your outfit. It's like, you're better than this. Yeah. And I think you can do better. And then he, like, holds himself back from her.
Yeah,
like, he lets her go.
It's what I was going to discuss, because the juxtaposition between Chloe Sevigny's character and Jared Leto's character's scenes in Bates's apartment are two entirely separate ways that Bateman views people, right?
Yeah.
So when he, obviously the famous murder scene is obviously Jared Leto's character. That's what this film is known for. I think it's like
the iconic scene from this movie. Like, if you haven't
apart
seen the movie,
from the dropping the chainsaw, I think that's a really iconic.
Oh, where we get to see Patrick Bateman naked. You get to see his penis.
But
he's so fucking ripped in this movie. It's unreal.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the back and everything, I'm like, he looks like a Da Vinci drawing, where it's like the muscular is so pronounced. You know, like, his ass card goes all the way up to the back of his neck. It's crazy looking. I still wouldn't fuck him, though. In case you're listening, Christian, it's not happening.
So Christian. But yeah, so the juxtaposition between Paul Allen's death and Chloe Sevigny's encounter with being in the literal lion's den, shall we say, is Bateman disregards Paul Allen at the last minute, and this just murders him to death with an axe. It's great.
Hey, Paul! It's so funny, that the little dance he does when he comes out of the room and stuff. It's hilarious.
But I do think that, obviously being iconic, I think the most dread-filled scene is Jean and Bateman in his apartment. It is, because the tension between the two of them is, first of all,
like, she's on a hook.
She's on the hook.
Yeah.
She is basically there, and he's dangling the knife in front of her without
he
her
has
realizing.
The fucking nail gun to the back of her head.
Yes.
And he restrains himself.
So this is why I do think there is a certain part of Bateman that still has humanity in a weird way. Because
it's the only scene where he shows restraint, though, which is fucking weird.
He physically has to pull himself back from murdering her, and it's not because of any ideological reason, any ideological reasoning. It's more so because of ideology. Chloe Sevigny's character Jean wants to go places. She wants to travel. She wants to go back to college. She wants to work herself from the filth that Patrick Bateman views society.
Yeah,
and that's
why he relates to her, kind of.
Exactly, he pulls himself back from doing it.
She's like the least piece of shit person in this movie, though.
Exactly,
an actual character. Like,
she is apart from obviously the detective Kimball. Like, you know, who
is just creepy. I don't care. Willem Dafoe, regardless of being a villain or not, it was creepy.
Yeah.
There's something about like his face and eyes and like mouth and stuff that I can't like. I think it's like I was low-key traumatized with him as the Green Goblin as a kid. That scene where he like, look, when he first wakes up as the Green Goblin, that's fucking scary, you know. But he's also just a freakish
That was
looking
also
dude.
directed by Sam Raimi.
I can tell, you know. Like that second movie where fucking Dr. Octopus wakes up out of in the hospital. That's a fucking Evil Dead scene.
Yeah.
You know.
So, like, I mean, just sort of bouncing off of, you know, Gene's character is like his lack of empathy, Bateman's lack of empathy for his fellow man, his insistence in making others like him, his compulsive lying, meticulous need to create order in things, all creates this illusion of a man, like a shadow of something that he thinks human beings are.
Like even his office is so like void of personality.
It's
like,
blasé.
This movie is like anytime we're
Blasé
like
da.
in Patrick's spaces, they're all like very sterile
Yeah.
and they don't look like Paul Allen's apartment looks so cozy. It's got that big white wraparound couch and stuff that they're all on, but like with like any of Patrick's spaces, they all look like waiting rooms or something.
Yes.
Like, they don't look comfortable at all.
Like that office doesn't look, it wouldn't be an office if it didn't have a desk and a seat in front of it.
Literally, it's got like 2 pictures on the wall. And it's like, that's it. You know,
That's it, yeah.
somebody probably gave them to him or some shit like that. Like, and even when he goes in, he doesn't work.
No, he just sits
He watches
there. Or he
Jeopardy.
disappears into headphones.
Yeah, the
for
Lady
most
in
of it.
Red and stuff. Or no, the scene where he like first gets into the office and he's listening to Walking on Sunshine.
Yeah,
after a
yeah.
murder, it's so That's what I'm saying. I find it like those are the little kind of moments where I think it's really funny. And again, it's all about juxtaposition.
Yeah.
The idea that he's listening to Huey Lewis in the news and
While
chopping somebody up.
Yeah.
You know, or listening to Whitney Houston as
While
he's like drugging one of his friends.
Yeah.
And like trying to get her to like get off with a girl or whatever. Now that sex worker Christy, I mean that's not really her name, but that's like what she's
he
referred to
demands
as.
she calls him.
I remember
Or
when
he calls.
when I got a wig for my Casey Becker cosplay like years ago, it came longer, but it had tiny little bangs. And
Yeah.
the post I have on Instagram is I look like that one hooker from American Psycho. I love her. Okay. So can we get into the first scene with the 2 sex workers? Because it's actually it's one of my favorite scenes just because it's shot really, really weirdly, and it's our first indication that things are not what they appear to be. Because like they have sex and like all this kind of stuff, and I love that we see one is like a quote unquote high class kind of escort type, and she's got that really long French cut 80s ass where the ass is really long. But one is in white, one is in black, and again it's this bedroom that just it's all white, it's very uncomfortable looking, and to what we can see, it goes well and he doesn't hurt them, and then they're laying in bed and they're both trying to leave because it's like after everything is done, and he's like, we're not through yet, and it's like, oh, okay, and then he opens this drawer that's got like a coat hanger and like surgical tools and pins and razors and stuff, and the girls seem fine until they're leaving the apartment, and then you see that they're
just trancing out of the apartment.
The high class one is
look at them.
bloody. Like she's got blood and bruises all over her face, and she kind of like stumbles out of the apartment, and Christy kind of just grabs it and leaves.
Yeah.
You know, again to kind of imply that like she's used to having like shitty hookups and stuff, whereas this other girl probably isn't, because she probably also doesn't really do stuff like this very often.
The other thing, actually, just sort of bouncing off of that,
can I flick that light on?
Yeah, of course. The other thing is very quickly is the fact that he changes their names to, I'm going to call you Sabrina and I'm going to call you Christy. Or Christy. Just flick on the switches. There you go. So again, this is another commentary that the directors and the writers are sort of screenplays are putting on it, that immediately these women lose their own self-identity.
Yeah.
And again, Patrick Bateman has control over them because they don't even own their own names. And I will say that as soon as that happened for me, it was a way for Bateman to disconnect from what he was going to do next.
Yeah, like it's all set up entirely by him.
Yeah. And it was scary. Like he just, like their identities are just wiped off the face of the earth. and all you have is this person that's again, it's a husk of a person. It's just a body for him to mess with.
Yeah.
And again, like, he doesn't refer to himself as obviously Bateman. He refers to himself as Paul Allen.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, even afterwards, like, Kirsty has the right to be extremely suspicious of him and fearful of him.
Oh, that poor
and
girl,
things
when
like
he
that.
picks her up the second time, it's like, just go! Just don't get in
And
the car!
he whistles at her like Kirsty is still a piece of meat.
Like
to
she's a
him.
dog or something.
She's a dog, and like, he dangles the money in front of her, and
it's like,
just
you can
really
see her
upsetting.
have that moment of like, and you know this girl is desperate because she wouldn't do that if she didn't really need that money.
Yeah.
There's a moment where she kind of like, she gets in the car for a second. He's like, see, it's all safe. The driver is here.
Yeah.
And he gives her a piece of money, and then he gives her a check. Because she's like, I had to go to the emergency room last time. I might even need a little surgery. So it's like, what did he fucking do to these girls?
Because it's all off screen. It's just
away.
implied that it's all
some King Joffrey shit.
Yeah, damn right. Yeah.
But then when she starts to walk away, and he's following her along and whistling at her, you can see her kind of like,
yeah.
Like, I probably should go.
You can see her breaking,
and again, like, she thinks it's all safe, which like fucking sucks, because like, she gets up and he's like, we're having dinner with a friend of mine, so it's not some random lady. It's a girl that he knows or whatever. This is one of the screenwriters, Guinevere Turner, who plays Elizabeth. I also really like her.
Love her. Concor, she's great.
She's very funny.
This wine tastes funny.
she just doesn't even. It's where she's asking Christy as well. She's like, "Where do you summer? Did you go to Dartmouth?" You know? Like,
yeah,
it's so funny. And
she's like, French.
She's my cousin from France. Patrick, I'm not in the mood for any lewd conversation. You know, I'm not a lesbian. That's Dartmouth guys. You know.
Cut to 2 seconds later,
and she's just
Kirsty's on top of her.
Up, and I'm like, God, that girl is on a Xanny and a Klonopin or whatever.
Yeah. No, not Valium. Lithium. Is it lithium?
No, not lithium. Courtney is on lithium. Courtney is Lewis's wife as well.
Yes.
I really like their interactions together as well. I mean, I don't like them, but like, I find them really interesting on screen.
Yeah.
Because there's a scene after Lewis thinks that Patrick is like coming on to him or whatever. When we see Lewis's card, this is right after the Ed Gein talk. Patrick goes into the bathroom to kill him because he's jealous of his card. And he like puts his hand around his neck or whatever, and he turns around and he just goes, Patrick, I never thought you'd ask. And then he's like, come on, don't be shy. And he's like touching his face and rubbing his lip, and he's like, I've wanted this ever. He refers to another incident that happened where he's like, I've wanted this ever since last summer or whatever. And it's like, what happened last summer, Patrick? What are you doing? That's sussy.
Patty, have you something to talk about?
And Patrick is so disgusted by the fact that not only that a man would come onto him, but Lewis would come onto him. And then right after that scene, he goes over and fucks the shit out of Courtney.
Washes his leather gloves.
He washes his leather gloves and everything. And he's like, what do you want? You know, like, he's so disturbed by it. And then right after this, he goes and
go return some videotapes.
That was going to be my opening line. When he uses it earlier after he breaks up with Evelyn, she's like, where are you going? And he's like, I have to go. And she's like, but where? And he goes, and then walks out. But right after Lewis tries to like get on with him or whatever like that, also he was pissing at a urinal and then just turned around with it zipping up. So I'm like, your cock is just out now. And these are the things I noticed. But yeah, he goes over and fucks Courtney right afterwards, which again is Lewis's wife, and he's like, I never noticed, or he's like, I didn't know you smoked, and she goes, you never noticed, you know.
Oh, and then she
Patrick,
has the whole Easter thing.
Yeah, if I don't see you after Easter, have a good one. I don't know. I find her really sad as well in this movie, because when he brings her out to Dorsia, it's not Dorsia, it's like Arcadia or something like that.
And she sits there and
she's on lithium. Yeah. Or no, she's on lithium that night, and she's really just like falling asleep. And no, she's on Xanax, and then he's like, you should take a lithium or a Diet Coke or something. You need to wake up. And she just falls asleep in the chair. But he's like talking to her or whatever, and she turns to the side and she's like, I want to have a child. Just two perfect children.
Yeah.
And falls asleep at the table. It's so funny though.
It's sort of something melancholy about her character, but then again, I also know, like, obviously her husband is gay, you know, closeted homosexual.
She gives me very like Stepford Wife, but like
a
Stepford Wife that got out of the program or something, because she's literally just like like, we see more of her than we do of Evelyn, Patrick's actual girlfriend.
Yeah.
But also, it's known that Evelyn is having an affair with Timothy, which is Justin Theroux's character.
Yes.
So you kind of get the sense that, like, everybody just gets with
Everyone's
everybody
just
in
fucking
this,
with everybody,
and
yeah,
nobody,
not saying anything.
and nobody, but, like, you get the sense that nobody cares. Like,
Yeah.
everybody knows, but it's like, whatever.
Yeah.
But again, it's all to keep up appearances. It's like we sit together when we're out with everybody, even though I know you're fucking him and I'm fucking her, and he doesn't know that I'm fucking her, but he's gay, so he doesn't care.
Yeah.
You know, like, even when they show up to have the dinner with Evelyn's fucking, like, goth cousin, who is serving cunt. I don't care.
He served what? Cunt. Cunt with a capital K.
Like, he shows up and Justin Theroux is literally just like he's kissing the fuck out of Evelyn, and he doesn't give a shit, you know. And even at the end when he breaks up with her, he's drawing Christy on the
victim,
thing in crayon at the table.
Yeah, it's
like,
also
look,
not
you're
even
terribly
on.
important to me.
It's also not even on a piece of paper that he's given. It's on the tablecloth itself. I just like those certain details are just so interesting to me. How blatantly.
He's not hiding
shall
it.
we say murderous that he just doesn't give a fuck anymore.
But that scene is hilarious to me because when they're in there, again, they're having a conversation and she's always talking about getting married. Like, not even, like, they're not even engaged or anything yet. She's just like, I think we should do it. We should get married. But in this scene in that restaurant where he breaks up with her, some lady walks in.
She's like,
and she's like, that is beautiful. I always find stuff like that hilarious, you know. But again, it's so vapid where it's like it just doesn't even fucking mean anything. And like everybody is, I think we've said it a million times in this podcast, just trying to keep up appearances and look good. And she kind of has like a Legally Blonde moment in this thing where she's like, no, and she's like breaking down at the restaurant and everybody's looking at them and he's like, what I want you to do is stop making this scene. You know, like he doesn't even shit that he's hurting her. He gives a shit that people are noticing and that he might look bad. Yeah. You know, even though he's drawing a picture of a dead woman. But that scene right before this of Christy escaping, this is the scene I find scariest because obviously he's drugged these two women. I'm pretty sure it's like a date rape or like a roofie or something like that because she wasn't into having sex first of all, and then she is afterwards. But they're under the sheets and Christy kind of thinks that this is her moment to like, right, I'm just going to get the fuck out of here while I can, while he's distracted. And he's under the bed with Elizabeth, or he's under the sheets with Elizabeth, and it's the sounds of sex, and then it's it's the sound of like panicking, and then she sees blood on the sheets, and he's like biting her.
It's not just like the blood isn't just on the sheets; the blood is emerging from the sheets.
He's
like
currently
it's appearing like
and this
on
is
the bed sheets.
When I think he's like ravenous or something. Like this is when he's like a rabid animal.
Yeah, this is when that like
her.
Metaphorical monster
comes out. Yeah, this is his most like
animalistic,
outwardly murderous,
evil,
like monster,
sinister.
It's really fucking scary.
Yeah,
because this is like the most horror, I think, because it's not played to be camp or funny.
Yeah,
it's completely played like a horror movie, and he's just, we don't even see what he does to her. He's just doing something to her under the. It's like a Nightmare on Elm Street or something.
Yeah,
and she gets out and she's running around, and. It's in this huge apartment, and she like runs into one closet and she sees who I think is the model from earlier outside the club, and another girl just hung up in the closet, like all bloodied and stuff. And then she runs into this other room that has yuppie scum spray painted all over the wall with just various body parts and gore. They don't actually focus on it at all. It's just pieces of people. And then she runs into the bathroom and it's covered in blood with another girl in there. And he shows up and he bites her on the leg. And she kicks him in the face and he's like, not the fucking face, you fucking bitch! He doesn't care that she kicked him. He cares that people will notice it. Yeah. You know? And then, I had this on my headphone. I watch all movies now with headphones because I think you pick up on extra stuff that you might not with, like, regular speakers. But the sound of this chainsaw made me jump even though I knew it was coming because it was so loud. Yeah. And again, it's the most gorgeous chainsaw because it's all chrome. It's like, it actually is like the model of Leatherface's chainsaw. But again, it's all chrome. It's very 90s. And he's just chasing her around this fucking apartment building. And she's like, again, she does the thing you want girls to do where she's just banging on every door and she's just screaming, trying to make a scene. And like, he's really scary in this scene because when he's just darting around, he's naked with socks on I will say, which is kind of a fetish for me. White socks specifically. I don't really fuck with black socks when I'm having sex. But that's not a race thing, by the way. But the way he's just sprinting down this hall with this chainsaw, and it's like he looks like Red Dragon or something. Like, he's so built, and it's like, this woman, if he catches up to her, she has no chance of defending herself. No. And you think she's gonna get away, and again, this is super unrealistic. This is where I think, like, all of this is in his head, because it couldn't happen at all. He waits for her to get down the flight of stairs, and he throws the chainsaw, and it perfectly times where it gets her. But then he kind of gives me a Buffalo Bill vibe, where when she's dead, he just like, he just yells at her, you know. And then that's when it goes into the next scene of him with Evelyn, where he's just drawing her body and shit, you know. It's crazy. Like, it's a genuinely frightening scene. And I kind of would like to see, I still haven't seen Thor Love and Thunder, but I would like to see more of more of Christian Bale as, like, this type of character, because he can do it so well. He is very imposing, you know. Don't just say great, because I will kick you in the side of your fucking head. I will put this foot on your skull, okay?
Okay.
Get the fuck out of here. Why don't you go take your Nietzsche and shit somewhere else, okay? Why don't you go take your Freud and go fuck yourself?
Ed Gein, is that the maitre d' at the Al Bar?
I know it so much.
No, I think that, like, you know, he fucks, he kills, he doesn't care, nothing matters to him, move on, you know? Yeah. I basically just summarized the last 8 minutes of your monologue.
And there it is.
It was 8 minutes. I saw the counter. We're now 1 hour in. And we were at 52 minutes when you started talking. We're now at 1 hour.
Damn, it's a gift. What
can I say? 8-minute monologue, man.
But this is where it really all starts to pop off. Like, this is where it becomes based in reality whatsoever.
This is where, quite literally, like
Patrick has snapped.
Because this is where my theory comes into sort of play, shall we say.
Oh, it does? Does it?
It does. Can I talk for 8 minutes now?
I don't think you can. You know, give it your best shot.
So, this, like, the whole conversation with three businessmen, which happens before that, is, like, the most trashiest, sexist, misogynistic thing
about ugly chicks and talented
chicks and blonde and this and that that you could ever hear. It only further implies, like, the slimy, disgusting nature.
It's just to fulfill all your sexual needs, but not be too slutty about it.
Exactly.
You know,
it's it's the slimy hidden nature underneath. You know, cigar smoke and Prada menswear. You know, it's this thing where
everybody's smoking indoors in this movie. It always makes me want a cigarette real bad.
It's just one of those things where I look at it and I go, like this film is not just commenting on, like, obviously the superficial level, which is Bateman killing people, but it's the societal thing about where it just likes to, you know, put a layer of fondant, or, like, what did I write down? I said something along the lines of, it's a dirty mattress being covered by a clean bed sheet,
Egyptian cotton sheet,
you know.
Yeah.
But, like, so all the rot and the gross smelly shit is still there. It's just masked. And in societal standards, this is why, like, that whole thing where she runs down the stairs and she's banging on doors and things like that comes into my mind as, it's not because up until now, when you said it's just a new building, my thought process lined with that was people just didn't want to get involved. They just didn't open the doors.
But also,
because
would
they were
you?
like, yeah.
I know that sounds terrible, and again, it is a societal problem.
Yeah.
But my mind always goes to A Clockwork Orange.
Yeah.
I've seen that movie. And this actually happened to me one night at a party where this girl rocked up to our house or whatever. And again, it was weird because there was, like, I'd probably say about, like, half and half men and women there. Mm-hmm. All the men came to the door, me included. And this girl it was like 3 a.m. and this girl was, like, banging on our door, and she was kind of, like, asking for help, whatever. But she was acting really sketchy. Like, she didn't act... I don't want to say act scared, but she was kind of like, she didn't seem panicked or anything like that.
Yeah.
And we were all kind of like, yeah, come on in. And it was like just to see if she could find whatever house she was trying to go to. And all the girls at the party were like, what the fuck are you doing? This is sketchy as fuck. Like, why the fuck did you just let her in? Anybody could have just ran in after her. Mm-hmm. You know, they didn't know that there was loads of people in here. You know, if that was just me at home, there could have been 3 dudes waiting behind her, and I totally would have just let her in.
Yeah.
You know, but I felt safe doing that because we like outnumbered her. But like when I'm at home, I don't answer the door to anybody. Mm-hmm. Like, again, I always say to my friends, I love you guys to death, but if you show up at my house and I don't know about it, I'm not answering the door. Yeah.
No, you know? No, you're 100% right.
If it's important enough, they'll call me. Or if it's important enough, I'll know about it.
I never ring the doorbell if I go to your gaff. I'm always ringing you to make sure. But
I did the same because you don't have a doorbell.
Or you could just knock. But, like, the thing with that is, like, it's straight up, as I said, like, it's a society thing. Like, that's the perception now that we have. Is that even in our own homes, we don't feel safe to, like, you know,
nobody wants to get involved.
Nobody wants to get involved.
Like, if a screaming girl came here and was banging on your door, would your first instinct be to open it up?
No, I'd
call the police.
Yeah, exactly.
If something is going on, there's people whose job it is to help her.
To handle that.
But also then, what if it is... But do you know what I mean? What if it is a situation where... Like, my uncle, a million years ago, like, when we all lived in Crumlin and stuff like that, got jumped. Like, and got chased around by, like, a gang of dudes or whatever. And like that, he was banging on people's doors and nobody let him in. And he got jumped and beat up. And it's like... It's such a double-edged sword. Because, like, if somebody really is in trouble... That's going to weigh on your mind.
Yeah.
Or even the night when Aisling and Courtney, when they got mugged.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
I was sitting, like, a house or so down from them when it all happened. And my immediate thing was to run and go get help. Because I was like, I'm not going to like, I know that's terrible because it's my 2 friends, but what am I going to do against, like, 5 dudes?
Yeah.
You know? And I ran to this lady's house, and I was like, oh my God, please help me. And I scared the shit out of her. Because again, this is, like, when I would, like, wear corpse paint and stuff like that. I literally looked like a dead person. I'm like, they're killing my friends, help me. And I took all my stuff out of my pocket, and I threw it under her garden gate. So I was like, even if they come at me, they're not going to get my stuff.
Yeah.
And she was like, she panicked, but then she stuck her head out the window and she was like, look, I'm going to call the police for you. Yeah. Like, I'm going to help you, but, like, I can't. Because she had kids in the house and stuff. And it's like, I don't blame her for not letting me in.
Yeah.
You know, even though my first instinct was to go and ask her for help, I don't blame her for not, like, letting us all run in because she has her own situation to protect, you know?
Which is why, like, these sort of situations, especially, like, Jean when she's in Bateman's apartment, like, this is why a situation like that mainly kind of skewered towards women, you know, and even obviously those subcategories being sex workers, trans women, all of these types of things. When it comes to situations like you are going into some random man's apartment, that's why that scene is much more terrifying, because, like, you know, after all we've seen, we presume we know Bateman.
She was this close to being shot in the back of the head.
Like, we presume we know he'll murder his secretary, and it's all the more surprising, obviously, that when he resists controlling that part of his urges, it's only after she reveals that, obviously, that she had the desire to, like, do more and go further in life, that he stops dead in his tracks. Like, he pulls back several times while questioning her.
Bad will happen.
Like,
but
it's
she
terrifying.
thinks it's sex. She thinks that there's something bad will happen, that he'll cheat on Evelyn. You know, and it's only kind of interrupted by a phone call from Evelyn. You know, well, actually, no, because he didn't have reservations to Dorothy.
He practically loses his murdering boner because she's on the phone. Like,
it also
and then she kind of
get him caught though.
Like Jean, like, kind of, she goes from, like, relaxed to suddenly, like, sitting upright. Do
you want me to stay? Do you want me to go?
Yeah.
She's like, I should go, and he's like, yeah, you should go. And she's like, do you want me to go?
Yeah. And, like, it's terrifying knowing.
And she looks stunning. She's wearing this, like, mint, like little, like a baby doll, like, slip dress. It's stunning.
And, like, it's terrifying knowing that she's in the lion's den with him, and all the more shocking when the jaws don't rip her.
The lion just wasn't hungry.
You know what I mean? Exactly. Like,
the lion was hungry.
More scary that way.
Yeah.
And, like, it's definitely like when it's the same when like that line obviously at the end, which is the lawyer, where, like, he's sort of like, he's covering up for Bateman, or isn't he, or is he this, or
he doesn't even think it's Bateman now.
He calls him something else, and he calls him Davis,
but he's like, look, I would have found it funny I wouldn't have found it funny if you referred to Justin Theroux's character, because I couldn't believe that he did all that stuff. But it's the fact that you told me that you were Patrick Bateman is why I laughed, because Patrick Bateman's a fucking loser.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, so is he even Patrick Bateman? Yeah. Are all these people parts of his imagination? Yeah. Are his relationships all entirely made up? You know, it really is like a weird jump into like a schizophrenic mind or an unstable mind. Like, there's that term where in a movie where somebody is an unreliable narrator. Yeah. Where you can't trust everything they say, but you don't usually have that person be the main character and be the person in every scene. Yeah. So that's why like this movie is just it's very, very confusing, and like it's one of the reasons why I really love to show people this movie for the first time to see what they thought of it.
What they interpret it as,
you know, because I think like I used to think there was it was very clear cut of like it's in his head, it's not in his head, but then like that we get the scene in the laundrette where there is blood on the sheets and people are seeing it, you know, but then also he goes up to Paul's apartment after this like die-hard ass scene where he goes around and just kills like it starts off where he's taking money out of the ATM and there's a little kitten and it's like, feed me a stray cat. Yeah. The ATM says, and then he's gonna shoot it in the head, and then he just shoots this old lady, and then he blows
up some police cars,
blows up 2 police cars, kills like 4 policemen, kills 2 attendants, and just kills this random guy in the lobby, which is hilarious because the guy coming out of the thing sees that he did it and Patrick is already running away, and then he like goes through the turnstile door and comes back and just shoots him anyway. And then goes up to Paul's apartment. No, he actually goes up to his office, and that's where he makes the big confession, and this is where we find out that he I also ate some of their brains. I tried to cook a little bit of it. And then he's like, okay, I'll see you tomorrow at 4 at Harry's or whatever, like at the bar. And what the fuck was I going to say? God damn it. And then he shows up to Paul's apartment the next day, and it's completely vacant. It's a brand new apartment, and nobody's ever lived there. Yeah. Although this lady seems like she knew about it. It seems like she cleaned up.
That's something that I actually wrote a note about. So when it comes to Bateman's, like these are 3 key scenes, which is his confession, everything that leads up to his confession, the apartment viewing scene, and the lawyer scene at the end. So these 3 scenes to me is where my theory comes into play, right? Okay. So it's going to sound sort of far-fetched, but it's especially with like blowing up cop cars with a fucking handgun.
Can I just say real quick before we move on from it? That apartment scene, for some reason, is also...
We're not moving on from it. I'm about to talk about it.
No, I'm
you
saying...
fucking cunt!
Before we move on...
May I have a minute, please?
That apartment scene is very creepy because there's like a weird standoff between him and this realtor.
I was expecting her to pull a gun.
It's kind of like... You get the sense that she knows. Like, it to me, the reading when I first saw this a couple of times was she cleaned that apartment up so she could sell it. But then she tricks him. She's like, oh, you saw the ad in the Times? And he's like, yeah, I saw the ad in the Times. She goes, there was no ad in the Times. It's actually a very like Lynchian, almost Twin Peaks kind of scene where it's really bizarre.
There's a weird standoff between the two of them. Yeah,
and then she's like,
and then he just backs off. He's like, don't worry, I won't.
She's like, I think you should go. So like, I still
don't want any trouble.
Exactly. I still kind of think she might have just cleaned that apartment up so she could sell it.
So just sort of before I kind of reveal my theory about that scene, is in Bateman's confession. This is the only time like we purely see Bateman in a the most emotional, the most revealing
like
kind of aspects. Like he gives an actual emotional response. But it's only when he's talking to his lawyer about the confession of killing, he says, about 20 or 40 people, cooking and eating their brains. But the only real reason he responds to the situation like this is not because of remorse, but because he fears being caught and quote unquote this time.
Revealed, yeah.
So like it...
Like he'll look like a bad guy.
Yeah, like he's terrified of like people knowing him for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Not because like he's like upset that he
doesn't get that he's killed people. He's scared that he's killed people, and
he
not even that he might even be caught. Is that it might ruin his reputation.
Yeah.
It's what society, like what his friends will think.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy.
So,
we get a lot of other, like, he killed somebody in the park. He killed
one
chicken.
faggot.
Exactly. And he killed some chicken, left it behind a dumpster. And all this kind of stuff.
We find out that Paul Allen is dissolving in a vat of acid in Hell's Kitchen.
In Hell's Kitchen.
That's crazy. Okay, so this scene, like, one of the final scenes, which involves Bateman and a realtor, can be interpreted one of two ways. So, A, he made the whole thing up in his head. Mm-hmm. This is just a coincidence that the realtor is there.
Paul's not even dead.
Yeah, he's not dead. Or B, the realtor knew what had happened and cleaned it away. And here's the thing. So this only states further my idea in my head behind how society wipes away like the parts of itself, like dirty, you know, just how society wipes clean the sort of, we don't talk about that.
Yeah, like she was willing to cover all that up so she could make the sale.
So she could make the sale. Yeah. So, like I said earlier, it's like a dirty mattress being covered by a new bed sheet to hide away one's sins in order to disguise the ugly parts. Mm-hmm. You know, so that's. In honesty, because of how I interpret the last scene with the lawyer, it only confirms in my head all of the thought process from the beginning, because I do believe, like, the underlying message is high society is fake and shit.
Rich people are pieces of shit.
Rich people are pieces of shit. So the scene, obviously, at the Gardens, which is the bar, the kind of businessman bar, with his buddies and his lawyer again, confirms seemingly the truth, again, with high society hiding their dirty secrets. And like I call it like the blood, obviously the blood elevator, like it's just being closed shut, but the blood is coming through, you know what I mean? So like the way that conversation with his lawyer takes place is, first of all, he confuses at least our perception of Christian Bale's character as Bateman. Yeah. And then he calls... Bateman consistently says, I'm Patrick Bateman, but the lawyer calls him Davis. Yeah. And every time...
Like, he refers to Patrick Bateman as somebody who's, like, in the room.
Yeah.
Like, Patrick Bateman is over there. What a fucking loser. You're not Patrick.
Like, he does it. He jabs his thumb over at some corner where Bateman is apparently standing.
He thinks it's a joke.
And when he, like, consistently says it, he goes from... like that sort of smile to
it's
stop talking now.
It's actually exactly the same dynamic to me as with the realtor, where she's kind of humoring him for a bit, and then
she's like,
she like trips him up, and it's like,
stop it now.
Like, it's not funny anymore. That's why actually now, even just during this conversation, I've kind of thought, oh my god, like he might not even be Patrick Bateman. Yeah, because he's insisting that he is, and this guy's like, look, like, the joke's not funny anymore. Yeah. But then there's this shot of when it pans back to the lawyer where he's deadpan and the music changes and it's creepy. Yeah. It's really fucking creepy.
It just feels like I mean, one of the interpretations is that Bateman isn't who he says he is, but he believes he is, and everyone is covering up for him. Yeah. Because it's the most outlandish, because there's a lot of times where, like, I mean, Bateman is quite literally carrying Paul Allen's body with a trail of blood all the way to his own apartment, not in Paul Allen's.
Where did you get that overnight bag? Jean-Paul Gaultier.
There's a trail of blood from his doorstep all the way down the apartment block, into the lobby, out the front door, and into the taxi. Yeah. There is no fucking way he would have gotten away with that.
But Paul isn't dead.
No, but what I mean is, like, these are sort of things where you look at it and go, first of all, it could be in his head. It might not be, but it could be.
It has to be.
And then you have a cover-up theory. You have...
police also just completely goes away.
Exactly. Like, none of that...
Like, he's obviously
there's no
lying
repercussions.
And gets caught lying to Willem Dafoe's character. Yeah. And they just go out for lunch, and it's... And then when he pulls out the Huey Lewis and the News CD, and Patrick kind of, like... He has this look every once in a while where it's like a real kind of extreme close-up on his face, where he just, like... Him just, like,
he's like
sinking.
He's no longer breathing. He's like, breathing through his mouth.
There's nothing there.
Yeah,
like, it really is that it's he just empty. Becomes, like you said, just like a husk, like a shell of a man. Yeah, like he's
outwardly
shaped
presenting.
Like a man.
Yeah,
you know, that's kind of, it is weird. It's almost a Michael Myers thing. Yeah, where he is just this shape.
Yeah,
you know, it is all completely surface level.
Yeah,
you know?
I gotta say, like, I haven't seen this film in years, but after, like, viewing it today, quite literally just before we recorded this episode, just minutes before, where I began to read, and, like, God knows, it could be 2 more years down the road, and then I read another theory behind it, because, like, I was reading through, like, loads of ending explains and theories and explanations to this character's motives and blah blah blah, and it just sort of comes across as like it's so open-ended that you can kind of pull anything from it and it wouldn't necessarily be wrong, you know.
But exactly, I feel like it's written that way. Now, what I do want to do, I want to read the book, actually, because the book is only like 300 something pages. It's actually very, very short. Just to see
and
if there is any other
first-person
insight.
Perspective from Bateman, isn't it?
I'm not sure.
I know he's the narrator. He's a narrator of the book.
I'm pretty sure, like, again, I'm pretty sure this is like a faithful enough adaptation, except for time frame. The book is set in 89, but the movie is set in 87.
Yeah.
But those are the only changes I'm aware of. Like, I haven't read the book. But, yeah, I'd be curious to read the book. And, again, just during this conversation, I had different realizations where it was like, wait, Paul Allen isn't even dead.
Yeah, he's
Paul
still
Allen
alive
was
the whole
in
time.
London.
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah, it's one of those that's very changeable. It's kind of a Blade Runner kind of weird thing where it's like it's intentionally left vague and it's intentionally left up to your interpretation. Even looking at it now, like, we had, like, your idea of what the scariest scene was in this movie is completely different to mine for completely different reasons, you know? I think like this is one of those movies that, like, 50 people can walk away with different interpretations of what happened, and they can all be different,
which in my opinion is good writing and is fantastic acting.
We're still talking about it.
Scene creation, cinematography, all of that type of thing is, once that, like, coexists and melds together really well, you get a film like American Psycho where, like, people, like, you use it in psychology classes. Like, it's fucking nuts, you know, these interpretations that you can derive from just this one. I mean, like, there's loads of them, but, like, just this one film alone, you can derive so many different explanations as to what, how, and why things are going on, and how they work in the universe that is Patrick Bateman's head. You know, and I think it really is, like, it's an A+ movie for me, you know, and it's why we're like, it still kind of stands the test of time, you know.
Well,
it's really good.
You know, again, I don't know, something about a period piece makes it, like, feel not dated.
Period. Insert cat going ooh give.
But yeah, it's I feel like I say this every week, but it's one of my favorite movies, though.
Oh God, girl, whatever.
No, but it is. I feel like, but also this is another one that I feel like, even though I know a lot of people that like it, is still really underrated.
Yes.
Like, I don't think
it's not.
It's one movie that I have been able to show a lot of people for the first time. A lot.
There's a certain taste to this film that you would. This is going to sound really awful, but that you. I don't even really want to say it.
Just say it.
But, like, you have to have a certain intelligence level.
No, but it is. But that's what I'm saying. I don't think. I feel like some people could watch this and read it purely as a horror movie, and I feel like someone like moi, wouldn't like again, like when I was talking to you on the phone earlier, I was like, this is a comedy, and you were kind of like, okay, you're gonna have to like.
You're gonna have to, because that's a stretch for me. Yeah.
But like, okay, so from watching the movie till the end of this, do you see the humor in this movie?
I can see that there's
like intentional
bits,
humor.
There's intentional, there's unintentional, because there you can read situations. But I do think, like the Reese Witherspoon, like going like, oh, I love that.
Yeah,
like a scene in the restaurant while
Merry
Bateman
Christmas,
is like,
Patrick.
I'm gonna fucking, rip your guts out, you fucking slag. You know what I mean?
You
like
slag. But that's funny.
You total slag.
You total slag. We found that written on the wall in Fibbers last time we were in.
So yeah, it's I see what you're getting at. Would I read that immediately? No.
I think we have different ideas.
Would I be looking at it and go, that's a strange choice of acting? Yes.
But see, I see it all as intentional. Like, I'm also kind of one of those freaks that also sees Texas Chainsaw as funny in some scenes, or it's kind of a satire. You know, I think, like, the reason why I think it is, like, comedy could be one of the primary genres of this is because, like, again, satire for me is a subgenre of comedy. You know, the same with, like, for example, with Texas Chainsaw, some parts of that are really, really darkly funny, you know, but I don't think most people would regard Texas Chainsaw as funny, but like some parts in it are, I think, intentionally put in there to make you kind of laugh in a really kind of dark way, in a way that kind of makes you look at yourself, you know. Like, I do think it's no, but again, like, I think, like, it's, they didn't just happen to, like, throw in any horror movie. I think there is a reason why, like, Texas Chainsaw is in this, because there's, like, this really weird subversive kind of like, there are two movies that really, really look at society in kind of like a really big, kind of broader, general kind of term, and when you look at things like that, I think it can reflect weirdly on you, and kind of, again, it's kind of taking the piss out of things without it being like a haha, like obvious funny kind of way. Yeah. You know, like, I laugh every time I watch this movie. I don't know what that says about me, but
it
most
says
of
you're
my other
demented
friends.
as fuck. What can I say? You know, it's the truth, grr.
Can't say that's the first time I've heard that.
So, stop doing the penis thing.
I can't.
Alright, so next week, this is sort of hard to explain.
Yeah,
we've been recording for like...
so we're going to talk about kind of what the through line has been for this last month, which is faggots are rotten. No, we're actually kind of...
well, they were all faggots, really.
There's gay shit in every one of these movies. Evidently. So, title to be confirmed, but next week we have The Slab making a return again. So we're basically just going to kind of look at, like, a through line of kind of the psychology of true crime and horror and stuff like that, because they're so intrinsically linked.
Yeah, we want to talk about the psychology of it. We want to talk about... Now, we're not psychologists, disclaimer. We're just giving our opinion on these things.
Not after last time.
You were excommunicated for the incident in Nebraska.
The other guy,
But yeah, we're going to talk about, like, certain things like schizophrenia. We're going to talk about nature versus nurture,
and like how these relate to horror. I feel like that's kind of our safeguard.
Yeah,
no, but it is. It's kind of our safeguard because it's not real. Like, we're not. Again, like, first and foremost, we're a horror podcast, so I don't feel like if you want. If you want that, true crime, go listen to My Favorite Murder or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But we're just going to kind of look at
how it relates to the macabre and the weird.
We'll get Annie Wilkes in there. We'll have a Michael Myers. We'll have a little bit of Pearl. All these men too. Definitely Ed Gein.
Leatherface. All of that good stuff.
Yeah.
Actually, to be fair, I'm actually surprised we didn't go for an obvious thing of Leatherface this month, but we can do it again.
I think it seemed a little bit like fantastical or something. Well, we also still haven't gotten to the original Texas Chainsaw yet,
which is crazy. I think it's on its way. 3 years down the line, man, and we still haven't talked about it. That's fucking nuts.
Well, we're trying not to bring you guys just the shit that everybody talks about.
Yeah,
generally.
we want to kind of.
I didn't want to just get all the classics out of the way straight away.
Yeah, because like then there's not that there's nothing to look forward to, but like it's good to have them interspersed with not so good horror films and amazing horror films and like legend icon horror movies and reviews and shit like that. But anyway, we're getting off topic.
With those things, it's kind of hard to say stuff that hasn't already been said.
Yes, exactly.
Because you're not just gushing all over it.
Yeah.
Like, we still haven't even gotten to like Alien or anything like that yet, which I would really like to do soon. I would very much.
We're going to be doing an Alien month. We're going to be doing a movie horror monster animal month.
Creature feature.
Moo month. We're going to be doing some stuff down the line. So it's in the pipeline. It's just blocked up because of someone's diarrhea.
Should we do Valentine next month? Possibly.
Yeah, it's February. Of course, we're gonna have to do Valentine's Day, or themed.
Well, see, I don't know how many of those we can fucking do. I mean, Valentine is the only one I can think of that's actually Valentine's Day related.
Well, I mean, this. I can think of a few. Well, we can do My Bloody Valentine again.
Oh,
just do the remake.
No, we can do the remake.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So, there's a few. There's
different movies.
We can do something.
That's two. We've already done the first one.
I mean, where do you go from there? But, so you've been listening to
They're Here podcast. We gotta go return some videotapes.